A video of Ratan Tata, former chairman of Tata Sons as well as Tata Group, has become viral after his death. In that video, Mr. Ratan Tata is heard describing his encounter with a person who he terms as a gangster. Mr. Tata said the gangster tried to attack him personally, attacked many workers of telco factory at Pune, and they had a long tussle, and eventually he was able to overpower the gangster. That was what he said in the video. Mr. Tata said the gangster had an eye on the huge funds of telco trade union, and that was why he created trouble in telco. I saw many comments below the video congratulating Mr. Ratan Tata, though from the comments it was very clear that not many people knew what really happened at the telco or who the person Mr. Tata was referring to. Was he really a gangster? I am sorry to disagree with Mr. Ratan Tata. Actually, the man who he was referring to is Mr. Rajan Nair, who is also known as Pushparajan Nair. Mr. Rajan Nair is a trade union leader based in Pune. As some of the comments below Ratan Tata's video said, he has not been manhandled by the public of Pune or he has not left Pune. The man is still there in Pune. In fact, he is a respected figure nowadays in the social and trade union circles. And the man is the Mr. Pushparajan Nair or Rajan Nair is the working president of INTUC Maharashtra unit. So that is the case. So you cannot totally accept the narrative of Mr. Ratan Tata. That strike at Pune telco unit could not be described in black and white. There are many gray areas also. But at the same time, I agree that there had been trade union excesses in that strike. Of course, it is true that Mr. Rajan Nair was a trade union leader who employed violent tactics. But you need to remember that trade union leaders, especially those who organized factory workers during earlier times, they all used violent tactics in Maharashtra. For example, you check about Dr. Datta Samant, who was a very well-known trade union leader who organized textile mill workers in 80s, 70s, and even socialist leaders like George Fernandez or Madhu Dandavadi, who later became ministers at the union ministers. They were also sort of trade union leaders who employed a kind of pressure tactics which transgressed the borders of violence at many times. So that's the real issue behind it. Let's get to the heart of the whole issue. Welcome to Insights. This is Hari Kumar. Actually, the strike at Telco Pune factory occurred in 1989. That was the time when Ratan Tata was introduced into the management of Tata Group. I think he started as the deputy chairman of Telco. At that point, the strike actually happened in 1989 April, I think. Around that time, Sumant Mulgaonkar, a very well-known management expert, he was the chairman of Telco. Incidentally, it is in the honor of Sumant Mulgaonkar that Tata Group brought out an SUV named Tata Sumo. It's not inspired by sumo wrestlers from Japan, as some of us tend to think. So, in 1989, there was a strike at Telco factory in Pune. There had been differences of opinion within the factory regarding a renewal of an wages agreement. So that was the background of the whole situation. And I have read that Mr. Pushparajan Nair or Rajan Nair had some personal issues also with the management. Mr. Pushparajan Nair is a person, ethnically he is a Keralite, but he is a person who was born in Maharashtra and he speaks Marathi very well. He speaks chaste Marathi. And I think he is a man who easily handles 7, 8 languages, including Hindi, Marathi, Malayalam, Tamil, many languages he speaks. When the strike happened, he was working with Philips Pune, and he joined Telco. He was something like a technical worker. So he was not a gangster, as Ratan Tata said. He was not a guy who wears a cowboy hat, moves around with a pistol, and threatens you at gunpoint and demands money from you. He's not a man like that. He had a proper job. But of course, he was a young man at that time. I think I heard in one interview Pushparajan Nair himself saying that he was just 30 at that time. And he capitalized the existing unhappiness, discontent within Telco factory. Initially, I think he had some fight with security guards and he beat up a security guard or something like that happened. And what happened was that later he was elected the secretary of Telco Kangar Sanghatan, which was one of the major unions. I think there was another major union also. And eventually, what happened was that Mr. Rajan Nair came to the forefront of the aggrieved group. And then the management, actually the local management at the Telco unit was initially willing to negotiate with Rajan Nair. But he, I think, being a very cunning trade union leader, he might have used the occasion or the opportunity to become the strongest leader in Telco factory. And what happened was that then they called a strike one day. Then there was a massive dharna in which around 12,000 or 13,000 workers participated. That was held in a fort which was built by Chhatrapati Shivaji in Pune. And then it became a very difficult issue. The political parties were afraid that the ire of telco workers will spill out and it cause trouble. Meanwhile, I think I read that Dr. Datta Samant came to the site and he met Mr. Rajan Nair. And other political leaders also sensed an opportunity. Mr. Sharad Pawar was the Chief Minister of Maharashtra at that time. And many opposition leaders also, they sensed an opportunity because they realized that thousands of workers and their families who are staying in the area were rallying behind. Rajan Nair became a focal point by that struggle. That struggle extended for many days. Sharad Pawar, meanwhile, called a conciliation meeting between Ratan Tata and Mr. Rajan Nair. And I have heard in a video Rajan Nair himself saying that being an inexperienced trade union leader, he couldn't handle negotiations. See, any struggle, any protest, any agitation involves real agitation as well as negotiation. Even Mahatma Gandhi spoke about struggle, truce, struggle. So you cannot always go on striking because a man who participates in a strike is at the same time a worker, he is a father, he is a brother, he is a son, etc. He has got many responsibilities. So you cannot always go out and strike. So there needs to be negotiation. But during that negotiation part, Mr. Rajan Nair himself said he failed in that. And he took an adamant stance. And the talks failed. Meanwhile, the management struck an agreement with the other union, and instead of 35% hike, something I think it was 35% hike in wages that they demanded. Instead of that, the Tata management gave them 30% hike. And I think the Tata management also gave a lump sum of rupees 7,000, which was a big sum at that point of time to workers. So many workers, I think around the factory had more than 10,000 workers, around 2,000 workers returned to work. Meanwhile, Sharad Pawar decided to act against Mr. Nair. So one early morning, hundreds of policemen swooped on the protest site in Pune and arrested more than 12,000, 10,000 or 12,000 people who were staging a sit-in there. Meanwhile, many of the people who participated in the dharna or the sit-in had fainted and they had been removed to hospital also. So it became necessary for Sharad Pawar to act, and of course he might have acted in favor of the management also, because many other factory owners in Pune, I think Sinwad or Pimpri, that area had hundreds of, not hundreds, thousands of industrial units. So every factory owner was afraid that this unrest will spread in the area and eventually that would affect them also. So they were all arrested and removed to different jail. The next morning they were given bail. But by that time, as I said, the management struck a deal with one portion of workers, and the other portion of workers who were with Rajan Nair, they were in a dilemma. And eventually the management suspended Rajan Nair, and I think he went out of telco factory. But he remained as a trade union leader. I think he got reformed. He also learned many lessons from the strike, because as I said, he was just 30 years old at that point of time, and he learned from it. And now I heard his interview. He is a very polite person, but still when he speaks, you realize that he is a strong man. I think now he is very close to Sharad Pawar, and he is a social worker also. He is still a trade union leader. He is the working president of INTUC in Maharashtra. So it's not as if the public manhandled him for his failure for initiating a strike in telco and he failed it totally. It was a strike for his own personal gains. Absolutely not. Actually, Ratan Tata also said in a later interview that before the strike in telco, we thought that we were giving everything to our employees and they were satisfied. The strike was also a realization for Tata management. They realized that there are workers and their units were also unhappy, unsatisfied. And that was a stark eye-opener for Ratan Tata also. He also learned. Mr. Nair is also, I also heard him saying that he also learned many lessons from it. And I think recently when Mr. Nair, I saw the opinion of Nair published by many national dailies about on Ratan Tata's death. He remembered Ratan Tata as an able administrator, but he said I had many differences of opinion. He also said that from then onwards, employees of telco got the strength to stand up to injustices. They will never suffer injustices thereafter meekly. So I think that the strike induced some self-respect among employees. The management also realized that they cannot take the workers for granted, and I think all the parties benefited out of it. So that is the situation. Mr. Nair is not a gangster. He has not been stoned or thrown out of Pune by the Maharashtrians. Nothing like happened. He is still there. He is a respected trade union leader. So that's it. Meet you with another topic next time. Till then, goodbye.